If you've ever wondered whether you're neurodivergent or just felt like you see the world a little differently, you're not alone. I was diagnosed autistic at 25, and suddenly, so many things I never had words for started to make sense. Here, I share the good, the bad, the ugly, and the beautiful parts of life through an autistic lens. My name is Elena Carroll, and if you're looking for answers, understanding, or just an autistic friend, you're in the right place. If you were diagnosed with autism later on in life, or you were self-diagnosed later in life, you probably got really good at hiding your stims from the world. This might be to the point that they are so incredibly subtle that others, and even yourself, may not know what your stims actually are. Stimming, I think, is such an important thing for neurodivergent people because it is a way that we are able to process the world, regulate our nervous system, and essentially process the information that we are receiving. Suppressing this is actually incredibly harmful for our existence in the world. For those of you who don't know what stimming is, essentially it is repetitive behaviors. Maybe you've seen it when someone is flapping their hands around or headbanging. When children perhaps find the release through headbanging, whacking their head on the wall, this is actually a, more self-harmful stim, but a stim nonetheless. Cracking your knuckles, biting your lips, tapping on your legs, these are all ways and behaviors that allow us to express, process, and actually experience joy. I think that stimming can also be the use of sounds as well. For me as a child, I had a lot of anger, and so I found a lot of soothing in screaming. Obviously, it wasn't soothing for anyone else around me, but the vibration on my throat actually allowed for some kind of release. So there are so many different ways that someone can stim. Today, I am going to be guiding you guys through 6 different stimming behavior categories, so you guys might be able to relate to the different behaviors and kind of unpack a little bit. If you're sitting there really not sure what your stimming behaviors are, let's kind of walk through this together a little bit more. It might be worth mentioning that your stimming behaviors are not random. They are actually very big cues from your body telling you what your nervous system is needing. So this is why it is so important to understand what your stims are, because it can really give you such a big clue as to how you're struggling and what your body needs in order to be soothed. As I said in the beginning, if you were late to the party with being diagnosed or self-diagnosed, I think we definitely have a higher risk of suppressing these stims and therefore not knowing what it is that helps soothe us or regulate us, because we have been told that what we are is too much of one thing or too little of something else, and we need to put the comfort of others before the comfort of ourselves. And so this is where masking comes in. This is where suppression of needs comes in. This is where we are trying to fit in. And so where the stimming might help soothe us, we have naturally pushed those stims away in order to make the other person more comfortable over ourselves. Your stims that you have currently in your life may actually have been very, very present in your childhood. And I think if you do have a close relationship with your family or the caregivers that you were around as a child, it really might be worth talking to your family, particularly if they are on board with the diagnosis, particularly if they are welcoming of knowledge. It can be so helpful to kind of ask about, just little quirky repetitive things that you might have done as a child. And I know for me, something that I always did, which I have talked about on here before, is I pulled my neck as a child. I always found, even as a baby, the pulling of my neck really soothing and helpful, and maybe a way for me to connect more with my body a little bit more. And so you'll be able to see in this video here a video of me pulling my neck, and it's very, very small and very, very quick, but it shows, I think I'm like, you know, one and a half here or something like that. And it's something that I have continued to do now at 29. Something else that I do is I pull on my knuckles. So I like to stretch that bit of skin because it makes me feel a particular sensation that I like, or I would fiddle with my rings if I was wearing some. I also like to kind of tuck my tongue in between my teeth and kind of play around with my tongue and teeth. And this is probably a more subtle way that I can stim in public. And I think a lot of my stims are very subtle, where no one really knows what I'm doing. Like if I'm playing with my neck, they just think I'm like, you know, maybe adjusting my collar or something like that. Playing with my rings, obviously people really can't see that. The amazing thing, and I really want to help rewire your guys' thinking around stims, is it's your body's own little secret language. It's telling you what it needs. It's telling you how you're feeling, even if you can't identify it. And so really tuning into what it is you do when you're not thinking, when you're bored, when you're anxious, when you're happy, when you're angry. What is it that your body instinctively knows to do in those moments, in those feelings, in those expressions? That is such a key indicator and such a cool little secret connection that you can have with you and your body that no one else needs to know about. And that's what I guess I'm trying to do in this video, is really help you guys discover the real ways that your body tries to self-regulate, and tuning into those. I feel like once you become aware of yourself in this way, you kind of can't go back. So how do we rediscover our stims? Because they were always there from birth. If you were autistic, they would have been always there. They might have changed and they might have developed, but they were there in some capacity. And so I want to ask you, the viewer, if you weren't afraid to move your body in the ways that you wanted to, how would you move? How would your body move if you were happy or excited and no one was looking, no one was judging? If we lived in a world where no one thought anything, in fact, neurodivergence was encouraged, you never once had the thought, I'm too much or I'm too little of something else. If you could just be what you were, how would your body move if you were happy or excited? How would your body move if you were anxious or overwhelmed? How would your body move if you were angry or sad or bored or waiting? These are the questions to ask yourself. I think a big part of rediscovering your stims is revisiting your childhood and what were the things that you can remember that you were told to stop doing. For me, the thing that comes to mind is when I would be sitting at the dinner table having a meal every single night with my family. I would sit back and I would rock on my chair. The two front feet of the chair would be off the ground and I would be holding onto the table and rocking. And obviously this was not very good for the chair, and so I was told to stop. But now that I think about it, I do believe that this was a way that I was able to kind of regulate the fact that I was eating and eating things that perhaps I didn't want to be eating, or having conversations that I didn't want to be having, or just having to exist and just needing to self-soothe in that moment. The movement, the rocking, perhaps probably was a way that I found regulation in my body. And this is what I found, like when I'm going off to sleep, I definitely tap my legs or rock my feet, and this began actually as a way of me not feeling earthquakes. I come from a place that gets hit with a lot of earthquakes, and not all of them are big. I definitely have been in a few big ones before, but definitely small rocking ones that are still really scary. And so as a way to kind of not feel the intensity of these earthquakes, I learned to kind of move my feet as I was going off to sleep. And when I moved out of that town and moved to a place that no longer got earthquakes, what I found was I continue to do this, and I still continue to do this as I go to sleep. And so it really is just noticing the different habits that you do and why you started doing them. It's also about really focusing in on the really subtle stims that you do. So it might be skin picking, it might be lip biting, it might be cracking your knuckles, bouncing your foot, zoning out, even humming. These are all big signs of your brain, your body, your nervous system trying to co-regulate. I think it's really important to have kind of these self-experiments as you are trying to unpack and rediscover your stims, and allowing yourself yourself in the private and the comfort of your own home or in your bedroom. Notice what makes your body feel good, and maybe this is intentionally moving your body in ways that you wouldn't typically move, and see what feels good. See what feels regulating and see what feels freeing. That's what I'm going to be getting into next, is the 6 different categories of stimming, and see what works for you guys. So now we come to the types of stims and what they say about you. The first one and the most obvious one is physical stimming. This might be rocking, this might be pacing, this might be headbanging, as I mentioned earlier. This might be tapping your fingers or tapping your hands, rocking your foot, anything that's actually engaging your body in some type of rhythm. If you like physical stimming, basically what this means is your body is able to regulate itself through movement, and it actually finds safety in the rhythm of movement. And this does make sense on a biological level, because we as babies, when we are inside of our mothers, we are moving with her. Basically what she is doing in the world, lying down, walking, whatever, we are feeling that rhythm. And that is a place that felt really safe and warm and happy. And so it does make sense that we can kind of go back to that place and feel that safety again through these gentle rhythms. If you do like the physical movement stims, it's definitely worthwhile kind of going to the gym or, swimming, running, that type of thing, actually moving your body. You probably find a lot of release in doing these things. You might be someone who has a lot of anxiety or a lot of pent-up energy, and so the expression and the release of these physical stims might be really, really helpful for you. Next, we come to auditory stimming, and so basically this means humming, repeating noises, or replaying sounds, that type of thing. So essentially, you self-soothe through the use of sound and the predictability that comes with sound. So essentially, what this might mean is if you're in a conversation or you're watching the TV or the radio, you might walk away and just keep repeating the same sentence or the same word over and over again. And it might start out with, questioning what it was that person was saying. And then over time, what you find is your brain is still stewing over this one word or the sentence, and it's finding a lot of predictability and soothing in hearing this same set of sounds. I think listening to music, specifically listening to the same song over and over again, is a way of stimming, and it's definitely one that I relate to myself. Next, we come to visual stimming. Essentially, this one is finding the soothing in watching lights and patterns and textures. You are grounding yourself in the beauty and the repetition that these visual things are giving you. The thing that comes to mind with this is definitely like fairy lights at Christmas time or Halloween time, that type of thing. When people decorate their house, you might find that this feels like a really, really soothing experience for you, or going to an art gallery or just looking at really beautiful things. You might be someone who was a student who color-coded everything, and you found that you were able to retain the information with more colors. I think watching the colors and textures and patterns and finding the predictability in this is a really great soothing way for people. I think if you are someone who finds a lot of self-soothing in the visual stimming, is getting yourself like one of those LED projector colored lights, and you can kind of dim the lights, change the colors to what you want. I had one when I was back in New Zealand, and it was so cool to kind of set 2 different colors, and they moved kind of like the ocean, and it was just, I was mesmerized by it. It was so self-soothing, and this is why a lot of people, they need the mood lighting in their home, and a lot of neurodivergent people need the mood lighting in their home. Next, we come to verbal stimming. This might seem like the auditory stimming category. Essentially, this one is a little bit different because you are finding kind of the self-soothing in scripting and repeating comforting phrases. So you might be someone who loves affirmations. If you have like the little sticky notes posted on your mirror or your bathroom mirror, starting out the day with the same predictability of these phrases and repeating these phrases in moments of complete stress is one way that we can ground ourselves. I think for a lot of people, especially if we practice religion or spirituality, a lot of us can have different things that we have taken from these religions or these beliefs, and it grounds us and it stabilizes us. You can find calm in the familiarity or the language loop. Next, we come to emotional stimming. stimming. And essentially, I think that this is a very, very prominent one, specifically for the late diagnosed, like teenage girl. You might relate to this if you are a big daydreamer. You really imagine yourself in different scenarios, or you find great relief in watching the same shows or the same movies or reading the same book. You are essentially creating safety through predictability and control and getting lost in a world that you are familiar with. There were different times in my life as a child that I would escape my world, escape my anxiety through imagining myself in my favorite movies. Specifically, one of my favorite movies was Spy Kids, and I also loved music. I loved the singer JoJo. So I would either pretend to be these girls or pretend to be friends with these girls, and it was just a way that I found the escape, and it felt predictable and it felt safe and it felt empowering. We can often get into these, daydreaming loops where anytime we have a moment to spare, we go straight back to this daydream, to this imaginary scene. And I think that the way that this can progress is if we start getting caught up in romantic relationships as we get older. This was definitely a way that I was able to process my breakups, really focusing on the fact if I wanted to get back together with them, just imagining my life back together with them. And a lot of people call this law of attraction and manifestation, and I am definitely a big believer in that, but this, I think, definitely is a coping mechanism for neurodivergent people. Lastly, we come to internal stimming. Essentially, what this looks like is you are very much caught up in your head. So this might look like counting, doing quick little math equations in your mind, tracing shapes in your mind. Maybe as you're walking or driving, you're seeing different things kind of happening around you. You are stimming in ways that people can't see. And I think for so many of us who weren't acknowledged or were dismissed as a child or were late diagnosed, we found ways of kind of getting lost in the self-soothing of using our brain and thinking, trying to figure out life's problems and the meaning of life and different things like that. And there is oftentimes a predictability that we are searching for because we do hate uncertainty. We are pattern-seeking machines. I want to say that there is no hierarchy of stims. They are all just as valid as the other. Some are just more visible than others, and it's all personal. You can't really decide your stims. Your body needs to decide your stims. Your nervous system needs to decide your stims. I think it's so important to really acknowledge your stims because it is data. It is giving you actual evidence of what makes you feel excited, what brings you peace when you are angry or sad or bored, whatever. It's actually data about your true self, which I know so many of us are actually searching for. Rediscovering your stims is actually a way that you're able to rediscover your nervous system and how your nervous system was operating before it was told that it wasn't enough or it was too much or too little of something. When you actually allow your body to move in the ways that it's wanted to, then you actually start hearing what it's been trying to tell you all along, which is what I think you're here for, is trying to know yourself and understand yourself and unpack your identity before someone, as I said, told you that you weren't enough. And ultimately, learning about your stims is a way of learning self-trust, which I am completely on that journey of trying to understand who and what I am and believing myself, trusting my brain, trusting that my brain and my body knows what's best for me. And I would say that you guys can definitely relate to that one as well. So that is my video for you guys today. I really hope that this was something that gave you something to think about and maybe something to think about when you click off this video. Essentially, that's always what I want to be doing. So leave your feedback down below. I would love to hear from you. And if you would like to see any more content from me, I am forever posting. So my social medias are always linked down below. I love you guys so much. Thank you. Thank you so much for spending this time with me. And I will talk to you guys in the next one. Bye. Mwah.